Right over here.
So long. I'm trying to know. This is the poetry event, right? And there's a thing in the other room too. At the same time.
What is that?
It's a man talking about how to sell, how to present your books, how to get your books known and read, and helping people find your books. See, I've got almost 4 books on Amazon, and nobody knows your name. You know what I mean? That's where I'm headed, but
Hi, welcome everyone.
So I'm going over there, but maybe next time I'll come to poetry.
What about 100% attendance?
You gonna take a picture of me?
I'm just leaving this here, so if it's one of the podiums, I'll have you. Oh, yes, sir. We'll keep having take a picture.
Just this way. If you have to zoom in, here's the zoom up here. Here's the zoom. With my hands, zoom. You picture me on the corner, and then you hit like the top.
I was never teacher's pet.
No?
I had good attendance, but I was never teacher's pet.
Another one? Thank you, brother. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got here.
I got each.
That's pretty cool, right? Oh, sorry. Look at that beard.
That's a good show.
We have about a it's like a minute after 7.
Look at that beard. It gets in the way. Thank you very much. Bob. Francesca, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I'll take a look at pictures. We'll figure it all out. I'm from Montclair Times. They sent me Montclair Times for the newspaper to take some pictures. So it's going to be next Thursday's edition.
Oh, wow.
Next Thursday's edition should be nice.
So they do have a newspaper.
Yep, Montclair Times it is.
I'm Francesca. I teach at the university.
Montclair University? Nice. What do you teach?
I'm an anthropologist. I teach.
Oh, you dig bones. Cool. Want a picture? You can get up on the podium.
Oh, I'm not reading today. I usually read now and then, but
Okay, would
otherwise
you
I
like a picture though?
that would be strange. Enjoy this picture.
You want it? Come on. Get up there, come on.
Always taking a picture of Mama. Why is it taking a picture of Mama?
My mother used to say, don't take my picture.
Is she going to be in the Montclair Times?
No, no,
Yeah.
no.
All right. Yeah. Yes, yes. Yep. Years ago.
5
Okay.
years.
I think so.
We have some old one. Should we start? It's about another minute. Let's give it 1 more minute.
Except for Anthony. Yes.
Except for Anthony. Yes, it does. Yeah. She was mad. All right, I guess I'll get it. Good evening, everybody. Woo, a microphone that actually works. Hey, we need to clap. If you don't already know it, I'm Raymond Sathyan Bremner, and I would ask you to come and sit down. And if you haven't already signed up for the open reading, please do that. And we'll have that after the featured readers. You know that Laura Boss and I run this reading series at Montclair Public Library, and we want to thank Montclair Public Library for its hospitality in allowing us to use the space for poetry, which I think Laura and I both have spent a long time trying to make space and place for poetry in North Jersey and anywhere we could, actually. So today we're having a marathon, New Year's marathon reading, and we thought it was an opportunity to showcase New Jersey poets, and also New Jersey poets who have been so supportive of the series, who come from quite a distance, in fact, even on a day when the weather is not so great, to come and be part of the audience and part of the reading. So we are grateful for that, and we just want everybody to hear all these different voices. So each one of these poets will get 5 minutes to read. And I'm going to start introducing one, and then Laura and I will go back and forth introducing people. The first reader today is Nutley author Anthony Buccino. He's published 16 books, including 5 essay collections, 3 military history books, and 7 full-length poetry collections. He has been called New Jersey's Garrison Keillor, or sometimes something to that effect. His latest book is Nutley Notables, the men and women who made a memorable impact on our hometown, Nutley, New Jersey. Let's welcome Anthony Buccino.
Thank you. First poem is called Sailboat. First you want a body of water to look out at your window. Then you want a sailboat to float by. Then you want on the shimmering sea. Then you want a body steering the sailboat towards you. It should be someone sexy, you say. And the sailboat slick and sleek as it approaches your shore. Then you want no window between you and the sea, a summer breeze to blow, wisps of sea spray to keep the bugs away. Next, you want more vacation time to sail away on the sea. That, my dear, is why you can see no sailboat or foamy water. You see nothing beyond the walls of your cubicle. This is called confetti. Late evening when the snow has fallen and before plows roll around the streets, I tread, my dog and I, the only sound, the silent snow falling upon snow. It's the sound every poet hears when he opens up his ears. In the streetlight's glare, flakes stream in sparkling white confetti, celebrating the beauty of the cold, cold night. This is called At the Vet, about my chocolate lab. Zamboni, my chocolate lab, loves the waiting room. He would sit here all day long if we let him. Each time the door opens and a new patient and pal enter, Zamboni's heart begins to race with joy, and his otter tail begins its unrhythmic beat against legs, benches, himself, flower pots. He tries so hard to lie still, but is in a sitting stance at once, and his mighty tail thumps and pounds with his passion and untamed love for his newest best friend ever, who just hobbled in through the door. And for all the easies and whoa boy, he has no more choice to stand still than I have to restrain his 100 pounds of leaping chocolate Labrador love. And as the newcomer ignores him and takes a neutral stance across the room, Zamboni cries a little uncontrolled whimper, looks up at me for backup, then settles down, his eyes again on the door. This is called New Girlfriend. I've got a new girlfriend now. We go for walks, we play together, we snuggle. She kisses and caresses me like you used to do. I'm so glad you went away. My new girlfriend is a redhead. Someday I know we'll run together along the ridge to the park and back for miles. And I find myself hoping you'll stay wherever it is you've gone to write your poems. You can't write at home with me and my new girlfriend, a hot redhead, and me can make time over a nice bowl of kibble. This is called Last Dog. One of the things about having a lot of short poems is you go right through, so I'm probably not going to use up 5 minutes, but this is called Last Dog. This is my last poem that I was planning to read. You benefited from dogs before, dogs tied on a chain and staked, dogs penned in cold plywood houses, dogs that dug pools of plywood, dogs that dug cool pools of rainwater. With each passing dog came an improvement, from the yard stake to the first floor, to the doghouse and the heavy chain, to the penned-in doghouse and straw with a burlap back door, raised off the ground from a shared pen to the basement crates side by side, to a nap in front of the fireplace. All to you, the last dog, who sleeps on a $200 orthopedic cushion, intercepting cold concrete chilled by an underground spring. You, the last dog, who whimpers when left outside alone, who nudges again and again for a long-nailed belly rub. You, the last dog, who takes the kids' dirty laundry and cuddles it like a pillow. You, who never learned to take a biscuit in a gentle way, or come when called if there's a better deal elsewhere. And I won't go into the things that you ate. And the way you returned that contraband. Oh, you remember, don't you? The slime ball in your crate that day? It had us wondering which end it came from and what it was. Until some prodding proved it to be a sock you ate from a stranger's shoe left on a soccer field one night. You are the last dog for this old man. The mornings are dark and cold in winter, and the summer nights full of stinging mosquitoes. That 6 is the magic number. That after you, last dog, there shall be no 7, no other dog. Thank you very much.
I think the pioneer spirit is in this room tonight with the weather. But anyway, it's a really warm atmosphere in here. So our next poet is Susan Lembo Balik. Susan Lembo Balik is Associate Director of Cultural Affairs at Passaic County Community College in Paterson, New Jersey. This past July, her first book of poetry, Sinatra, The Jeeperettes, and Me, was published by Garden Oak Press. Her poems have appeared in the Paterson Literary Review, Lips, Paddlefish, Tiveret, and other journals. Let's give a warm welcome to Sue.
I'm actually going to start with a dog poem. My Dalmatian was a therapy dog, and she served in a Fair Lawn nursing home. And this is called Pet Therapy. In our Kansas City kitchen, you hide behind my husband's legs, wearing vulnerability and celebrity like a coat of contrasting colors coveted by Cruella de Vil. I'm told you need a new home, or it's off to the pound. Seems the man you were gifted to one Valentine's Day before he was married, before a newborn took center stage in his wife's small world, is moving out of state without you. Your plight tears my heart into pieces, and though we are only a month in our new home, already have 2 dogs and a toddler, I say, of course we'll take you in. Of course we will. In our yard, your 2-year-old legs race like a thoroughbred against the backdrop of a neighbor's cornfield. And at school or the park, I willingly fade into the background as young fans clamor to count your spots. Oblivious to the Disney machine that made you famous, you don't understand the fuss. But never complain of little hands pulling your tail, tugging a black velvet ear, squeezing your neck. More human than beast, your gentle ways make those afraid of dogs unafraid of you. So at 9, you began giving therapy to the sick and lonely, waiting out days in nursing homes bound to wheelchairs and beds, soap operas and bingo, apple juice and PB&J on white bread. Your magic triggers stories of loyal 4-legged friends long gone, memories tumbling from wrinkled lips like waterfalls. At 13, you're almost a century old. You are the senior in need of therapy. Arthritis robbed you of hikes in the Ramapo Mountains, and I worry your hips will give out before your heart. It pains me to see you lift your head off the cushion when I hook up the puppy's leash for my morning jog. On good days, though they are few, you walk the kids to school. The puppy chokes himself in his rush to get there. I click his fishline lead, he scampers ahead as my middle-aged legs slow to walk beside you. And now, switch to a different animal. We bought a horse a little over a year ago now, and I'm a little bit crazy about him. And this is called the Mare. You are in the ring at the stables and Joey canters clockwise, fine, but when you ask him to go counterclockwise, he goes to the fence and stands there. He does this over and over again, and you are frustrated. But Carol, the instructor, says in the wild, the herd looks to the mare, and so you need to be the mare for Joey. And I have a vision of you with your chestnut mane blowing in the wind, galloping across the plains in Wyoming or Montana or Idaho, a free spirit moving faster than the river, clear and muscular, a blood-orange sun in a big sky, and a herd of wild Mustang with long, graceful legs thundering behind you. And now I'll do a human poem. It's called, it's actually a new poem about a few months now. It's called A Stitch in Time. The handkerchiefs speak of a time when little was wasted, before things were disposable, the Great Barrier Reef, the rainforest, plastic everything. The handkerchiefs speak of great-grandmother, whom my daughter never met, who grew up in the mountains of Abruzzi, married young, came to America, had 7 children, a son who died of measles at age 7, a daughter, an invalid who died at 39, another son, the black sheep, and 4 daughters who'd stick together into old age. The handkerchiefs speak of a grandmother, my mother, who shares my daughter's name, who was born in Patterson to a housewife who spoke no English, and a dye house worker, and passed on her mother's delicate handiwork to me in a flat square box with gold scrolling, a box that was neglected for years, buried under other keepsakes until I passed it on to my daughter at the age of 9. In her gold purse in the pocket of her jeans, my daughter touches the smooth fabric, the bumpy edge of embroidery thread, flowers stitched in pale pink, violet, deep red. She touches the white cotton once starched, ironed, folded, and laid in a mahogany drawer, now crumpled, buried beneath coins, lip gloss, her inhaler, handkerchiefs that speak of the women who came before her.
I want to say before I introduce the next poet that I'm sure many of the poets have books, so if you're interested in their poems, you can just approach them and ask if they have books with them that they'd like to sell and they could sign for you. Our next reader is Ron Bremner, and he's worked as a cab driver, a truck unloader, a commuter programmer, and a vice president at Citibank. His work has been published in International Poetry Review, Passaic Review, the Society of Classical Poets, and other magazines, and he's published 10 ebooks. Ron regularly reads at various local venues and on the Poetry Superhighway radio show, where he was Poetry of the Week in November. He lives in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, with his wife Francesca, his son Raymond, and their dog Ariel, from the Sylvia Plath poem of the same name. Let's welcome Ron Bremner.
I'd like to thank Laura and Maria for hosting this series. 35 years ago, I was living in Passaic when Rich Quattrone and Lorraine Quattrone started up the Passaic Review, and they were kind enough to include me in the first issue. Other notables in the first issue were Mr. Quattrone himself, of course, Laura Boss, and some guy named Ginsburg. So this is the crossing of the Red Sea from that issue. The sky is a red sea, the moon is a smooth stone. Dark cloud eroding islands, shade deep hung cliffs. Washed in by such an evening tide, revolutions gasp in bartered currents. Romance erodes in dullish sweat. Creation skims and dips away. But in the Cleveland Sea, something bright excites the iris, and the cool round moon echoes with remembered melodies. And in the dark island caves, lurking, hiding, waiting to be discovered, lives? What promise? What fate? These are reasons fair enough as reasons go, no less real than any abstract, no less false than any trust. The sky is a red sea, the moon is a smooth stone. Dark cloud ferry steamers will carry me home. Last year there was a great Great Falls anthology, wonderful Great Falls anthology. But did you know that there was one back in the 70s too? This one at the William Carlos Williams Festival, and I was lucky enough to be included in that, along with Adele Kenny and Penny Harder. So from that, here is The Ghost Chaser. He chased the ghost to the crack of our whip. Our simple plan? The ghost would vaporize through his fingers before delighted eyes and excited sighs. The stupid man, he couldn't understand the plan. He caught the ghost we love the most. His prize? The stings of our whip. Away he ran. That was for Roger Maris. And my last one is another dog poem. Unfortunately, it seems like that's mostly what we have tonight. This is called For Ariel. My dog lopes along, stubbornly stopping every few feet to sniff with great scrutiny the ground we are walking. She steadfastly resolves to solve this big mystery of who or what went before. She darts after every upstart squirrel or cat and freezes at the sounds of barks, yips, and howls. With me dragged along at her side, she's fearless to boldly go where no dog has gone before, until she spots her deadliest foe, that bringer of all evil, the mailman. And she loses all control and decorum till he's barked and bullied back to his rightful place. Thank you. I'd like to thank my lovely wife and my wonderful son who's filming this. And also I'd like to thank Jackie Stearns, my friend, for showing up. Thank you.
Good job.
D.M. Dutcher supports his muse as a carpenter and fine woodworker, including a stint at a professional theater building their stage sets. As a poet, he has directed and hosted 3 reading series and is published in several literary journals. And he traveled really far to be here tonight, and he brought his microphone so that everybody could hear the poets, and that is so typical of Dutch, and we all know him as Dutch, and he has been on the scene for a really long time and been so generous to so many poets. Let's give him a warm welcome.
I don't know if you'll thank me after all these snow poems. This first poem is called Snowfire, and it has kind of a dreamy, low-key pace, and the only punctuation in it are dashes and ellipses with 3 dots. Snowfire. It snowed all night, and the day fiercely clear. We shoveled the thick, soft silence till we scraped against the day before, foot by foot, to mailbox, studio, barn, and shed, a weave of paths connecting us to our daily work. And now I've stopped on this final trip to the shed, half supported by shovel, to gaze as the setting sunlight sears across the drifted snow, igniting the neighboring field, so the dried stalks of thistle and loosestrife seem to crackle in this crimson glow. Like embers from the fire I will build tonight, tossing on logs, staring dreamily into the spirit flames, the stern andiron owls staring back, thinking how the fire's progress parallels Shakespeare's Ages of Man. The infant tended the unwilling schoolboy, the strutting soldier hurling oaths, no longer sure which play that's from. And old age, old age should burn and rave at close of day, and then the dying of the light. The last of the logs shift and collapse in a crunch of sparks. Ash and coals settle through the grate. We leave the fire to its fading aspirations, manage the stairs on unwilling limbs, and pull the old feather quilt over us with a little shiver and grateful sigh. The senses release their hold, sans everything. I startle at the imminent darkness. All shapes have melded into shades of gray as I close the shed door and head for the beckoning light of the kitchen, arms full of wood quickening my step. This is a very visual poem that you have to follow fairly carefully. It's called Retreat. When I'm the first to travel over freshly fallen snow, I'll find the trail I've been making seems to follow too close behind, and for all my turns and meandering will always lead straight to me. It's then I'll stop, frozen in mid-stride, like a cat waiting to strike. I spring through the clear air, twisting, landing in perfect stride, facing my former path. Then walk on my way, but backwards, leaving this mysterious meeting to lead the following together, to puzzle at our escape into thin air. I'm not sure what turns a non-poet into a poet. You know, what happens in the brain? But this is the hard fact of how it happened with me. This is the first thing I ever wrote that came out like a poem. And you know, who knows where it ever came from, you know, some 45 plus years ago. But I've read it before, and you know, it's simple, but I think it still works. It's called Vigil. Delicate snowflakes drifting about in the cozy darkness stop to stare into our windows, then are swept away. Winding footprints gather in the distance, but the silent bushes stay huddled under their fluffy cloaks. Branches sway and let their shadows play in the snow. Towering evergreens are humbled, and even our mighty machines are made innocent and pure. Telephone wires run side by side, keeping each other company, and a lonely traveler finds warmth in his memories. I don't know whether it's auspicious or not, but that was it. No snow in this one, just a little chill. It's very short. Passing by, they're eating from a white bakery bag along the cinder railroad, They're eating from a white bakery bag along the cinder reservoir track. Two lovers on a park bench, huddled against the morning chill. 4 arms emerge from under an overspread coat as if from a single creature. One hand holds a curl of cinnamon roll. To which mouth will it go? Thank you.
I must say, just we're grateful for this microphone, very grateful. Our next reader is Martin Golan. Martin Golan's poetry has appeared in many publications, including Lips, Pedestal, the Dos Passos Review, and the Patterson Literary Review. He also published a novel, My Wife's Last Lover, which spent over a year as #1 on Amazon's bestseller list for the Montclair area, and a collection of Montclair-based short stories, Where Things Are When You Lose Them. Let's welcome Martin Golan.
Laura Marie, thanks. I'm not used to not having to shout here. This is a great idea. I'm going to read 2 poems. And there's a little haiku that I sneaked into this one, but it's called Finding the Bed in a Marriage. First you hit the chair as you feel through the room, switched strained by darkness. Her sleep sounds direct you, a map detailed by sighing and rustling, the steep relief of even breathing. The room snapped to blackness is a kind of sleep. Emergency lights in the head flip on to let you view the room from within. The hard bedpost, seen with the hands, is misshapen, larger than it was. A bureau sneaks up, a startled shoe makes a stand. Nothing survives its deadly idea. You find the bed and steal beneath the covers, warmed by a woman in a distant sleep, in a distant room you will never see. And you know inside that this is what you stumbled in the dark to find. Stumbled for years through empty rooms, to stand right here on this very spot in the breathing dark. All that is yours is now at hand, the beating heart at the heart of it all. A comfort of flesh, a confusion of needs, and a contest over space. Sleep nears, you dream of slow clocks ticking. And the haiku sneaked in there. Anyone been married or in a long-term relationship might relate to these 17 syllables, just marriage, a comfort of flesh, a confusion of needs, and a contest over space. And then one last poem, one I wrote really recently, inspired by just a picture that I saw. It's called, a little depressing, so I suppose. A woman dying of cancer stares at the sea. She notices mainly the violence of the waves, how merciless the ocean is, unforgiving and cruel. That is its beauty, she now understands, that it asks nothing, takes nothing, is oblivious to us, and to all we can lose in this life. She swoons at this knowledge, so hard, yet so pure, needing to close in on the pounding waves, stepping out on the rocks of the slippery jetty, entirely unafraid, she who used to fear every little thing, till she feels an icy spray on her cheeks, on her eyes, on her lips, the lips he kissed with such passion in another life. And it tells her why she so desperately needs this wild and wet certainty to splash her face. She shuts her eyes to better know it, to bring it closer, be one with it. Always she has felt this way, that life had a layer over what it was that she couldn't strip away, as a man once whispered to her in bed sweetly, lovingly. A wall between what she felt and what was out there, between her body and his hand, as if her body wasn't really hers and couldn't be his, and her life wasn't really life. Only now it comes to her, that beauty, that love, are never near enough, raw enough, and it brings again to mind him, still barely known after all these years, and the boy and girl she soon will lose. But it was always there, this rawness. And she finds a touch of solace, no more than a touch is granted her these days, in the spray that saps needles of ice on her skin. It says that after she is gone, the sea will still pound the rocks and the sand like this. The waves will still crash, as if she were still here. That is what it is. O sea, pound hard, slam your waves against the shore. For me, if for nothing else, do it for me. Remind me again how simple everything is. Remind me again that this is what it is. Thank you.
Elissa Gordon's poetry mines a childhood spent between New York City and New England in a passion for travel and foreign language. She has appeared in print in the Edison Literary Review, the Stillwater Review, River Poets Journal, New York _ Windmills, Australia, South Mountain Poets Offline, the Rutherford Red Wheelbarrow Poets, The Great Falls, an anthology of poems about Patterson, and featured in 2 Best of Collections with Short, Fast, and Deadly. Upcoming in 2015, she is thrilled to be in Lips. She's appeared online most recently in Kind of a Hurricane Press anthologies, Life is a Roller Coaster, and Petals in the Pan. In 2009, her poem, Here Come My Girls, won 2nd place in the New York Times.com Suburban Spring Poetry Contest. Let's give our usual warm welcome for Elissa Gordon.
Thank you, Laura and Maria, for this wonderful series. I've gotten so much pleasure out of it, and I'm thrilled to be included. On waking, 5:30 a.m. I am haunted by the sum of your beauty. The salty air, the distant lash of waves on the shore, the haze of first light hovered, and the edge of a dream slipped away, leaving only those last words hanging above my head like a mobile, for me to frown and swat at. What is the sum? What were the parts? And since no one lies there on the pillow or in near memory, more intriguing, whose beauty? Pluto struggles to maintain dignity in the face of demotion. Did you see that tiny article buried on an inside page of Section C of the Sunday Galaxy Gazette? It briefly mentioned that an American data-gathering craft will make an historic Pluto flyby in 2015. It's not like I'm the destination or even focus, and what the hell does "will hurtle breathlessly close to the Plutonian surface" mean to me? 7 years and 4.5 billion miles to reach Pluto. Oh, good for you. What do you want? A medal? Actually, probably you do. And how about this? Not substantial enough to shape its matter into the round sphere we associate with planets, unable even to sweep up debris and gather breaking asteroids as they pass by. It doesn't dominate its neighborhood. Even its moon, Charon, is almost half Pluto's size. And thanks for the discouraging description, deep in the icy Kuiper belt. That'll keep me isolated. How would you like it if I moved your desk over by the elevator? Oh yeah, and asked you to sweep up debris. Let's see you dominate that neighborhood, pal. I like this part of the report. Pluto isn't gravitationally independent. Not gravitationally independent, my icy dark side. And when I presented my case to the astronomers, those smug, over-promoted plutocrats, okay, that's not the right word, but I found it satisfying. That astronomy bureaucratic combination looked me straight in the crater and said without blinking, "We haven't really fully demoted you. We merely changed your designation from planet to dwarf planet. The word planet is still there, after all." martini. I learned to mix a martini when I was 8. My father had rinsed out a La Choy soy sauce bottle, filled it with dry white vermouth, and stuck it back in the refrigerator door after he showed me how much gin to pour and demonstrated 6 brisk shakes of the La Choy bottle. I was probably too young to be making martinis and shouldn't have known that technically, since my mother took hers with onions, they were actually Gibsons. 20 years later, after chemotherapy ended, we were given the good news that my mother could drink anything she liked once again. You are never old enough to know there is nothing more they can do. Here's one of my travel poems. Bernini. Did you see his David? Cumbersome, graceless, a face so ugly it might as well have been Rodin's Ugolino. Ugolino. At least there it was agony, he fumed. I fold the last bit of tomato and basil into his mouth, earthy Tuscan skin. I'm sorry. I fold the last bit of tomato and basil into his mouth, earthy Tuscan sun on the fruit, on my skin. His sulkiness dissipates. I will tell him later that although Paolo has called after me, Bella, Bella, every morning, he has never actually managed to pinch my bottom. Okay. I guess I'll do one more travel poem. Well, let me do this one. Galaxy 500. I'm going to spell this with a Y, although the model car is spelled I-E. When it's your first car is your universe, so I spelled it with a Y. Galaxy 500. You don't so much drive as navigate, my college boyfriend shouted as we hurtled down Route 27 toward the diner. All new to me, diners, jug handles, large American cars. The physical solidness of that Ford gave him a nodding satisfaction, its power glee, when he maneuvered donuts in the empty end of my dormitory parking lot during the first snowstorm. Pride, his big brother asked if they could take it cross-country for their annual trip. On his return, he piled presents in my lap, peyote buttons, matchbooks, postcards, snapshots, a turquoise bracelet I had hinted at, and on the table a stack of mixed tapes, as familiar to him as his own breathing by summer's end, mine now in September. He was still gone from me, lost in nostalgia and wistfulness for the first trip, before the tape deck, his big brother a new driver, his hero, and together they proclaimed the only good thing on the radio that summer, the Allman Brothers' Ramblin' Man. I had a snow bunny. I was like a kid in a candy shop this week. I was, wow, I could read this, I could read this, because of journals like Laura's and Maria's, which keep her writing. So I'm going to try this from memory. Ascutney, Vermont. The flesh of this apple I am eating is like the crunch, crunch, crunch of the snow, compacting white of snowball fights, resistance of ruby skin, that icy chill my skin covered in. Long, thoughtful chew, afternoons, oh, I can't do it. Long, thoughtful chew, my afternoons of endless angels, snowball fights. Resistance of ruby skin, the icy crust I struggle in, marking my path across virgin fields. Root cellar chill, the apple cold against my teeth, is the icy chill that roses my cheeks. Snowballs, ice forts, bear paws that carry me a few paces, then sink. Impossible blue skies meet blinding white snow in New England minimalism. My brave northern spy and golden grimes, icy sentries tower over me with their limbs offering up their spare naked elegance until spring. Thank you.
Our next reader is Jim Gwyn, and Jim has been writing poetry and fiction for many years. He received first prize in the 2008 Allen Ginsberg Poetry Contest and has 6 Pushcart Prize nominations. His recent work has appeared in the Patterson Literary Review, the Rutherford Red Wheelbarrow, Lips and Seventh Quarry, the Swansea Poetry Quarterly. Let's welcome Jim Gwyn.
Thank you. I want to make a quick announcement first. I host a poetry and music series at the Ant Bookstore in Clifton on the 3rd Friday of every month. And it's at 7 o'clock, 345 Clifton Avenue, corner of Main Avenue, free parking. Our next featured reader is Maria Gillan. It's next Friday, the 16th. I hope you'll be there. It'll be a wonderful night. We also have 2 good musicians. It's a duet. They are Ricky and Carol, or Ricky and Wendy, I'm not sure. I think that's it. But they're 2/3 of the duo Hot Flash, of the trio Hot Flashes. So they'll heat up the night with 2/3 of their repertoire, I guess. I guess that's the phrase, you know. A lot of you out there know me as a narrative poet, and so I tonight put together a series of haiku and tanka and some short stanzas, and I'll leave one narrative poem for the end. I think it's because of the cold weather I always think in shorter things. This is a winter stanza. A cold day and no wind is like crackers without peanut butter. There's no random sound, and you can hear each crunch. You don't have to clap. I didn't write shorter poems so I get more applause, you know. This one has no title. It's just ice and furious wind, the futility of chipping the layers. Countdown to spring begins. But this next one is a very cold poem. It's called 15 Degrees Fahrenheit. I think we can all relate to that. But I want to leave you with a little bit of hope because the countdown to spring does begin. There are 41 days until the report of pitchers and catchers. Okay, so keep that in mind. 15 degrees. You can clap for that. Yeah, baseball. 15 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll miss cold weather in July. Sweating at picnics. Watermelon juice on our chins. I have a series of car poems on non-muscle cars and muscle cars. They're not all mine. 64 Ford Falcon, that was my first car. That's a non-muscle car. 64 Ford Falcon. Going 75 on a straightaway. 2 miles later, downhill, barely 85. 58 Buick Special. Floating on the Pennsylvania Turnpike until police special, night radar. Corvair. America's answer to the VW Bug, but a sharp curve in snow, sailing into a pasture. This is my first muscle car. 68 Chevy Impala. 283 engine, black exterior, red leather seats, white convertible top, body by Fisher and Bonnie and Marcia. And I'll end with my narrative poem because this is an old poem which some of you may know, but I have to read this of course today because it's January 8th. It's Elvis's would-be 80th birthday. Okay, so I know there are a lot of Elvis, people out there, right? Who's a fan of Elvis? Yes. I think when Elvis was still alive, there were at least 3,000 Elvis tribute artists. They used to call them impersonators, but the real term is tribute artists, okay? And when he died, the number jumped exponentially to 30,000. And I think that by the year 2020, there might be at least 1 out of every 3 people will be an Elvis tribute artist. Okay, so look around you and you will see who that person might be, okay? And this is written for my boys back when they were first getting into Elvis hair. This is, of course, called Elvis hair. My boys want Elvis hair, excuse me, let me begin again. Elvis hair. My boys want Elvis hair, not Aaron Carter or Justin Timberlake hair, but Elvis hair. And thank God not Eminem bleached or Moby no hair, but Elvis hair. And when they come dripping from the shower and ask me to comb it like he did in Jail's House Rock, I can't help but tease as they stand on tiptoes and peek at the mirror. How do you know I'm not doing Frankie Avalon or Paul Anka, I ask. And they show me with their hands while they speak. Because you always scoop out the sides, give that front that big wave, and comb the back into a DA. What's a DA? I know the cruelty that can be children, so I say, isn't it just good to have a little mystery? Then, after combing, we go to choose clothes, tight jeans and black shirts. No mystery there. No bow wow pants, no grunge clothes that could start a war over holes, over nothing. Just something the king would wear, at least in his early years. Yes, better to give my boys the early years to identify with rather than the jumpsuit days. If you're a 7-year-old, you want to go to school dressed like the young Elvis, because there's nothing worse for your ego than the jumpsuit days. And having someone ask, teasing or not, if you are Evel Knievel. Thank you.
Well, the computer has to be responsible for something. I'm not a tech person, so I blame it on the computer. And so we're missing Janet Kolstein's bio, so I'm going to say, do you have it with you? Yeah, well, I know Janet for many years as a really, not just a really fine poet, but a distinguished and award-winning artist, and I know she's been a Byron expert lately. I know she's been published in the Red Wheelbarrow, Lips, and many other places, and she's active in the Rutherford Red Wheelbarrow group. So, but I'm going to let her add a little more when she comes up here. And meanwhile, let's give her a really Montclair welcome.
I will add to that bio that my sister-in-law used to have a celebrity look-alike entertainment company, and I made the acquaintance of several Elvis lookalikes, including one who had many surgical operations in order to look more like him. This is called Baja. The road from Tijuana to Ensenada turned a rusty brown and a dusty hot, then into an old scar at the edge of a cliff. This was no time for fear as we clambered down a hillside, grabbing onto long dry grasses leading to the sea, where little black lizards dashed over rocks. The sky was full of solitaires and diamond dust. We lit a fire and sat on the ground by the Volkswagen bus, watching for comets, trying to find Orion's belt. Then out of the shadowy dark, we watched 2 figures draw near, slowly becoming a man and his son. Ah, una actriz, the elder smiled, shy, looking at me across the flames, and I couldn't tell him that I got more auditions than parts that paid. El Hijo walked off by himself into the scrubby darkness where the scorpions lay, and invisible, I heard him singing, a young voice floating the night.